It doesn't begin on the battlefield. It doesn't begin with swords or soldiers. It begins in silence, in the middle of the night, when you're lying awake, staring at the ceiling, and that voice starts whispering, "You're not good enough. You always mess things up. No one really respects you. You'll never make it." That voice, the invisible enemy, the one that knows every weakness, every failure, every wound you've ever carried, that enemy is not the world. It's not your boss. It's not your family. It's not your past. It's you, your inner critic. Most people think the hardest battles in life are fought outside, against unfair bosses, failed relationships, broken systems, cruel betrayals. But the truth, the greatest war you'll ever fight, is against the voice inside your own head. That voice is a master of disguise. Sometimes it sounds like your parents. Sometimes it sounds like your enemies. Sometimes it sounds like you, only harsher, colder, crueler. And the worst part, it never shuts up. It whispers when you're trying to sleep. It screams when you're about to try something new. It laughs when you fail. And most people, they break under it. They give up dreams before they start. They sabotage themselves before the world even has a chance to. They live smaller than they were meant to live, not because the world crushed them, but because their critic did. But here's the secret the Stoics knew. The inner critic is not truth. It's not reality. It's a distorted voice, a parasite in the mind. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, that's the most powerful man alive, wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Even as an emperor surrounded by enemies, betrayal, plague, and war, Marcus knew the real battle was not on the battlefield. It was inside. And if he lost that war, nothing else mattered. Think about this. Epictetus, once a crippled slave, beaten and mocked, said to his students, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the view they take of them." He was reminding us, your critic doesn't describe reality. It distorts it. It magnifies fear. It invents failure before you even begin. The Stoics saw it clearly. The critic is not your master. The critic is your test. Now let me ask you, how many battles have you already lost because of that voice? How many times did you stay quiet when you should have spoken because your critic said you're not smart enough? How many times did you quit when things got hard because your critic said you'll never win anyway? How many times did you live in fear because your critic whispered, "What if you fail?" The Stoics would look you in the eye and tell you the truth. It's not the world that is holding you back. It's you. It's that inner voice. But, and here's the fire, you don't have to keep listening. You don't have to keep bowing to it, because philosophy, when lived like the Stoics lived it, is not about abstract ideas. It's about building armor for the soul. It's about silencing the critic. It's about becoming untouchable, not from the outside world, but from the storm inside your own mind. So listen carefully, because in this journey, you're going to learn how to do what Marcus, Seneca, and Epictetus did. You're going to learn how to stare the critic in the face and whisper, "You don't own me. You don't define me. You don't silence me. I silence you." This is how you kill the inner critic. The Stoic way, the Stoics said, the mind is like a city. Strong walls protect it, weak walls invite invaders. But most of us, we've been living in a city where the gates have been wide open since childhood. And every insult, every failure, every judgment has marched right in and built a throne. That throne belongs to the critic. Think about it. When you were a child, You didn't doubt yourself. You didn't look in the mirror and hear, "You're not enough." You played, you tried, you failed, you tried again. Fear wasn't your governor. Wonder was. So where did the critic come from? It was planted. A teacher who mocked you in front of the class, a parent who compared you to someone else, a friend who laughed when you tried something bold, a boss who told you that you'd never make it. Over time, those voices didn't just echo outside, they echoed inside. And slowly, you began repeating them yourself until you couldn't tell the difference between their judgment and your own voice. The Stoics saw this clearly. Epictetus said, "If someone speaks badly of you, do not defend yourself. Instead say, 'He surely does not know the rest of my faults, or he would not have mentioned only these.' Why? Because he knew words are only daggers if you let them pierce. He knew that no insult, no failure, no rejection could harm you unless you turned it inward. The critic is not your enemy's voice. It's your own surrender to their voice. But here's the key. If the critic was planted, it can be uprooted. If the critic was built, it can be dismantled. The Stoics trained their minds the way warriors trained their bodies. They built fortresses inside themselves, so no voice, not emperor, not enemy, not fear, could break in. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal from his closest allies. He buried his own children. He ruled in a time of plague and war, and yet his private journal reveals no self-hatred, no endless criticism, only reflections, only adjustments, only action. Why? Because Marcus refused to give the critic a throne. He knew the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Feed it poison, and you become poison. Feed it strength, and you become unbreakable. Now ask yourself this: whose voice does your critic sound like? Who planted it? And how long have you been letting it rule your city? The Stoics would tell you, once you see the enemy clearly, you can finally fight it. And the fight begins with training. The Stoics didn't waste time arguing with their critics. They trained their minds until no critic could survive inside them. Because here's the truth: the inner critic is not destroyed by wishing. It's destroyed by discipline, by daily practice, by philosophy forged into habit. Epictetus gave the first weapon. Some things are in our control and others not. When the critic whispers, "You're not good enough," ask, is this about my effort or about their approval? Because your effort is yours. Their approval never was. A Stoic warrior refuses to fight battles outside his walls. The critic starves when you stop feeding it things you don't control. The critic thrives on exaggeration. You failed once, you're a failure forever. She rejected you, no one will ever love you. You stumbled, you'll never rise. Seneca exposed this poison centuries ago. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. The Stoic trains to spot the lie in real time. When the critic screams, you write it down, you dissect it, you ask, is this fact or is this fear wearing a mask? 9 times out of 10, the critic is nothing more than smoke, and smoke cannot bind you once you see through it. The critic is loudest when life shocks you, when failure strikes without warning, when loss blindsides you. The Stoics solved this with a practice called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Marcus Aurelius began his mornings imagining betrayal, hardship, even death. Seneca advised rehearsing poverty, exile, and suffering. Why? Because expectation disarms surprise, and when hardship arrives, the critic cannot say, "You weren't ready." You already rehearsed the battle. You already built your armor. Marcus wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." When the critic spits venom, the Stoic doesn't collapse. He absorbs it. He transforms it. Insult becomes fuel for patience. Failure becomes fuel for growth. Rejection becomes fuel for self-mastery. The critic feeds on your resistance, but once you alchemize its attacks into training, it burns itself out. Seneca wrote, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." Most people fight the critic with noise. They argue with it. They drown it in distraction. They shout affirmations, hoping to cover the whispers. But the Stoic chooses silence, stillness, breath, because silence reveals the critic for what it truly is, a shadow, not a commander, and shadows cannot control the warrior who sits in stillness, unafraid of them. The critic doesn't die in one day, but with each practice, separating control, catching lies, rehearsing hardship, turning pain into fuel, embracing silence, the voice weakens. Until one day, it's no longer a general in your mind. It's nothing more than a whisper, and you walk past it like a king walking past a beggar. The Stoics never pretended the critic didn't exist. They faced it every day, just like us. But instead of being ruled by it, they turned it into their servant. Marcus ruled the most powerful empire on earth, yet his journal, Meditations, is filled with battles against his inner critic. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be." B1. Why did he write this to himself? Because even emperors hear the critic whisper, "You're not doing enough. You're failing. You're weak." But Marcus silenced the critic not with pride, not with excuses, but with action. He turned philosophy into command. He answered the critic's doubt with daily discipline. The lesson? The critic may whisper, but it cannot withstand relentless action. Seneca was ordered to die by his own student Nero. As he prepared for death, the critic could have screamed, "Your life was wasted. You failed as a teacher. You will die in disgrace." But instead, Seneca used even his last breath as a lesson. He calmly slit his veins, spoke wisdom to his friends, and transformed his death into a classroom of courage. Imagine that. At the moment most fragile, he stood unshaken. The critic tried to define him with failure. Seneca answered with serenity. The lesson? When you own your response, the critic cannot own your story. Born a slave, beaten until his leg was twisted forever, laughed at, mocked, treated as less than human, the critic surely whispered, "You are nothing. You are broken. You are powerless." But Epictetus looked his critic in the eye and declared, "You may chain my leg, but not even Zeus himself has power over my will." That single sentence destroyed the critic's strongest lie, the lie that freedom belongs to others. Epictetus showed that freedom begins and ends in the mind. The lesson? The critic loses the moment you declare, "I command myself." You don't. History doesn't record his name. But imagine a Roman soldier in the legion. Hunger, cold, fear all pressing in. The critic whispers, "You will die here. You cannot endure this. You are too small." But he remembers Marcus's words. You have power over your mind, not outside events. And so, while comrades complain, he breathes. While others curse fate, he whispers, "Amor fati." That nameless soldier never wrote books, never ruled empires. But in that moment, he was just as unbreakable as any emperor. The lesson? Silencing the critic isn't reserved for kings or philosophers. It belongs to anyone willing to choose it. The critic whispers to all. emperor, slave, philosopher, soldier. But the Stoics proved something eternal. The critic's voice may speak, but it is never final. What is final are your actions, your choices, your discipline. And every time you act in defiance of the critic, you carve your freedom deeper into your soul. The Stoics fought their critic in silence, in journals, in exile, and even in chains. But what about us? What about the modern battlefield, the one where the critic doesn't whisper but screams at us 24/7? Scroll through your feed. What do you see? Perfect bodies, perfect lives, perfect smiles. And your critic strikes instantly. Look at them. They're better. You're behind. You'll never measure up. Comparison has become weaponized. What was once a whisper is now a megaphone blasting into your head every time you pick up your phone. But the Stoic warrior remembers Epictetus. Some things are in our control, others not. You cannot control the curated lives of strangers, but you can control what you feed your mind. You can step back, breathe, and remind yourself what they show is not who they are, and what matters is not their life, but how you live yours. The Stoic silences the critic by refusing to play the comparison game at all. Fail a test, lose a job, launch a business that collapses. The critic attacks without mercy. You're worthless. You'll never recover. You're done. Most people surrender to this voice. They stop trying. They label themselves forever. But Marcus Aurelius flipped the script. He wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." Where the critic sees ashes, the Stoic sees fuel. Failure isn't final, it's kindling. The critic screams, "It's over." The Stoic whispers, "This is the beginning." In the age of constant connection, more people feel alone than ever. And the critic loves this silence. It whispers, "No one cares about you. You are forgotten. You don't matter." But Seneca knew better. He reminded us, if you are lonely when you are alone, you are in bad company. The Stoic doesn't run from solitude. He transforms it into a fortress. Where others drown in loneliness, he trains in silence. Where others hear emptiness, he hears his own strength speaking back. The critic feeds on fear of being alone. The Stoic starves it by turning solitude into training. This critic is the deadliest of all. Not just "I failed," not just "I am alone," but everyone is ahead. Everyone is winning. I'm the only one losing. You see friends buying homes, traveling the world, finding love, and you think, why not me? But Marcus had the answer centuries ago. Do not waste the remainder of your life in thoughts about others. The critic thrives on distraction. The Stoic thrives on direction. Every moment you spend measuring another's progress is stolen from building your own. In 2025, the critic has new weapons, algorithms, screens, endless voices. But the Stoic still wins with the old tools. Control what you can. Stop chasing what belongs to fortune. Turn failure into fire. Everything thrown at you becomes fuel. Embrace solitude. Alone does not mean empty. It means strong. Stop comparing. The only battle is the one within. Here's the truth. The critic has grown louder, but not stronger. It only has as much power as you hand it. And when you live by the Stoic way, when you reclaim your mind, the critic shrinks back into the shadows where it belongs. 1. The sword of control, Epictetus, gave us this sword. Some things are in our control, others not. The critic thrives when you chase what you cannot control. It whispers, "They don't respect you. The world is unfair. Why doesn't life go your way?" But with the sword of control, you cut through this noise. You ask, is this in my hands? If yes, act. If no, drop it. This single question slices the critic in half. 2. The shield of perspective. Marcus Aurelius looked at stars to silence his critic. He reminded himself, look at the immensity of time and space and the smallness of man. When the critic says, this failure is the end of you, the shield answers, this moment is dust in eternity. Hold this shield, and no insult, no failure, no fear can pierce you. 3. The armor of amor, fati, love of fate. The critic screams, this shouldn't have happened to you. But the Stoic answers, this must have happened because it did. Instead of fighting reality, he embraces it, not with weakness, but with strength, because what you accept cannot break you. This armor makes every blow bounce off. Every wound becomes fuel. Every loss becomes part of your story of power. 4. The hammer of discipline. The critic grows strongest in moments of weakness, when you're tired, lazy, unfocused, but discipline smashes it. When the critic says, stay in bed, discipline lifts you up. When the critic says, skip the hard work, discipline drives you forward. When the critic says, you're not strong enough, discipline answers with proof. Every act of self-control hammers the critic smaller and smaller until it disappears into dust. 5. The mirror of reflection. Seneca advised nightly review. When the light has been taken away and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said. The critic hates this weapon because it thrives in shadows. But reflection exposes it. You write, where did the critic win today? Where did I fight back? How will I strike harder tomorrow? With the mirror, the critic has nowhere left to hide. 6. The cloak of silence. Seneca said, don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. The critic loves endless chatter in your head, but silence suffocates it. You don't argue with yourself. You don't beg for approval. You don't announce your strength. You simply act quietly, powerfully, consistently. Silence is not weakness. It is stealth. And with this cloak, you move beyond the critic's reach. 7. The fire of transformation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, a blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. This is the final weapon, not defense, not avoidance, but transformation. Whatever the critic throws, insults, doubts, fears, you burn it into fuel. The more it attacks, the stronger you grow. The critic doesn't know how to fight a fire that feeds on its attacks. The Stoic arsenal sword of control, shield of perspective, armor of amor fati, hammer of discipline, mirror of reflection, cloak of silence, fire of transformation. This is the Stoic arsenal. With these weapons, the critic cannot win, because every time it attacks, you answer with a weapon older, sharper, and more unbreakable than its voice. The critic is cunning. It will return again and again. It waits for you when you're tired, weak, distracted. But today, this ends. Not with soft words, not with excuses, but with war. Face the enemy. Close your eyes. Hear the critic's voice. You're not enough. You'll fail again. Why even try? Good. That voice is the enemy. And today, you kill it. The Stoic strike, Marcus Aurelius, in the heat of Rome's darkest nights, wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The critic is inside your mind. It has no power except what you give it. So you take back the throne, you rise like a general at dawn, and you command, enough. Burn the critic. Epictetus taught, the more we value things outside our control, the less control we have. The critic feeds on your fear of outcomes, so you starve it. You burn every useless thought in the fire of amor fati. Failure, fuel, insults, sparks pain. Flame, you are the fire. The critic is only smoke, and smoke cannot survive the blaze. The warrior emerges from now on. When the critic whispers, you answer with silence. When it doubts, you answer with action. When it attacks, you answer with stoic weapons. You are not a prisoner of thoughts. You are a warrior of reason. You are the commander of your soul. The death of the critic. The critic begs for your attention, but you give it none. It starves, it shrinks, it dies, and in its place, calm, strength, freedom, the Stoic warrior's oath. Say it now. I am stronger than the critic. I choose control over chaos. I choose reason over fear. I choose to live fully, freely, and powerfully. This is your oath. This is your armor. This is your rebirth. The final victory. The critic will knock, but you won't answer. It will whisper, but you won't listen, because now you are untouchable. Now you are unshakable. Now you are a Stoic warrior. And the critic? The critic is dead. The critic is gone. But silence itself is not the end. Silence is the beginning. Because when the noise of doubt dies, something else rises in its place. Clarity, strength, direction, the warrior's awakening. Think about it. For years, your mind has been crowded. Insults, comparisons, fears. But now, silence. And in that silence, you hear something you've never heard before. Your own command, not the critic's voice, not society's whispers, not fear's lies, but the voice of the warrior within you. And that voice says, stand up, walk forward. The world is waiting from silence to action. The fragile stay silent and stop there. The Stoic uses silence as fuel. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his meditations just to sit in peace. He used them to lead Rome through war, plague, and betrayal. Seneca didn't practice silence to escape life. He practiced it to enter death with courage. Epictetus didn't quiet his critic only to feel calm. He turned that calm into teaching that changed thousands of lives. Silence without action is emptiness. Silence with action is power. The Stoic shift. Here's the truth. When the critic is silenced, you finally realize the chains were never around you. They were inside you. And once those chains are broken, nothing outside can hold you. Not failure, not rejection, not chaos, not even death. Because the battlefield was never the world. It was your mind. And you've already won. Preparation for the final step. So understand this. Silence is not where the story ends. Silence is where the Stoic warrior is born. And now, with the critic gone, with chains broken, you are ready to hear the final lesson. The lesson that turns silence into a weapon. The lesson that transforms endurance into destiny. The lesson that makes you eternal. And that lesson is waiting in the next step of the path. The inner critic is dead. But the story doesn't end there, because a warrior without a path is only half alive. The Stoics knew silence is victory, but action is destiny. The next battlefield life doesn't stop testing you. Even after you silence the critic, the world will try again. The betrayal will come. The failure will strike. The storm will rise. But this time, you are not the same. This time, you are armed. This time, you walk with the calm of centuries of warriors before you. The echo of greatness. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of the greatest empire on earth, still reminded himself each morning, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one, notice that? No endless debate, no critic, just action. because the critic dies the moment you act, and greatness lives the moment you persist. From chains to command, Epictetus was born a slave. He ended as a teacher whose words outlived Rome. Seneca was ordered to die by the hand of his own student. He transformed death into his final lesson on courage. Marcus ruled armies, plagues, betrayals, yet in the quiet of his tent, he found peace in philosophy. Do you see the pattern? The Stoics weren't free of pain. They were free through pain. Your turn. Now the torch is in your hand. You are the continuation of that ancient brotherhood of unbreakable minds. Every time you silence your critic, you honor Epictetus. Every time you embrace pain as fuel, you honor Seneca. Every time you control your mind and stand unshaken, you honor Marcus. You are not just fighting for yourself anymore. You are walking the path of warriors who never broke. The eternal code. Remember this: control the mind and you control the world. Embrace fate and fate becomes your ally. Silence the critic and you unleash the warrior. This is the code. This is the path. This is the way of the Stoic. The last word. And when the critic ever tries to return, you will not fear. You will not break. You will simply smile and whisper the three words that make you eternal. Amor fati. Always.